Let me ask you something real. What if the most powerful way to make her regret disrespecting you is not by reacting, not by arguing, not by proving her wrong, but by doing absolutely nothing? Sounds strange, right? Because the world teaches you the opposite. You're told to text back faster, to explain yourself, to show her what she lost, to post something online to make her jealous. But let me tell you the truth. Every time you do that, you lose power. Because here's the thing, respect isn't taken with words, it's felt through energy. And silence, my friend, is the loudest energy of all. Now ask yourself, why does she suddenly pull away when you show interest? Why does she seem to lose respect when you try harder? Why do women act like they want attention, but then get bored when you give it too freely? Why do they come back the moment you stop chasing? There's a pattern here, and it's not about games, it's about energy, it's about scarcity, it's about self-worth. See, the moment you make her the center of your world, she loses attraction, not because she's cruel, but because your energy stopped being mysterious. You became predictable, you became safe, you became too available, and that's not what draws people in. What pulls someone toward you is curiosity, that quiet question that lives in their mind. What's he doing when I'm not around? What's he thinking? Why doesn't he react like other guys? That's the beginning of respect. You don't win it by chasing. You earn it through silence, purpose, and self-control. Because a man who can stay silent when disrespected, a man who can walk away without explaining himself, a man who can smile instead of argue, that man shakes her, not because he's cold, but because he's calm, because he's mastered something most people never will: detachment. Now don't get me wrong, detachment doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care without losing yourself. It means you can love, but still choose peace. It means you can want someone, but not need them. And that's terrifying to people who depend on control. Because once you stop reacting, they lose their grip on your emotions, and that's when the regret begins. When you go silent, she starts to think. When you stop proving, she starts to remember. When you move forward, she starts to feel the absence. That's the paradox of masculine energy. The less you chase, the more she feels your value. The more you center your life around your purpose, the more she feels pulled toward your gravity. You want her to regret disrespecting you? Then make your silence heavier than her words. Make your presence so grounded that your absence feels like a storm. Make your life so full that she realizes she was never the sun. She was just standing near one. Because here's the truth. You don't teach respect by speaking. You teach it by living. You show her your value by not begging for it. You make her see your worth by becoming the man who doesn't need to be seen. So before you think about revenge or proving yourself, pause, because the moment you stop trying to be understood is the moment you finally become powerful. This is the silent way of the Stoic man. He doesn't chase peace, he embodies it. He doesn't need validation, he radiates it. And that right there is the move that changes everything. The first silent move isn't about walking away, it's about walking within. And that's where all your strength begins. The second silent move, the power of composure. Let me ask you something real. What shakes a woman more? A man shouting in anger, or a man who simply looks at her, stays silent, and walks away with calm eyes? It's strange, right? You'd think emotion shows you care. You'd think being expressive earns respect. But in reality, every outburst, every argument, every "I'll prove you wrong" moment kills your power slowly. Because when you lose your composure, you give her something she should never have: your emotional control. Now think about this for a second. Why do some women test your patience? Why do they say things they know will sting you? Why do they act distant, cold, or ungrateful when you give your best? And why do they seem more interested in the men who stay calm, even when everything falls apart? It's not random. It's not about games. It's about energy. A calm man radiates something most people crave but can't explain: emotional safety. He doesn't explode, he doesn't beg, he doesn't panic, he observes, he decides, he acts from clarity, not chaos. And here's the twist: the moment you can stay calm when others expect you to fall apart, you flip the power dynamic without saying a single word. She starts questioning her behavior, she replays her words in her head, she feels that subtle shame, not because you punished her, but because your silence made her see herself. That's the power of composure. It's like holding a mirror to someone's behavior without using a single sentence. See, women, like everyone, are emotionally wired. They live in energy. When you lose your cool, your energy feeds hers. But when you stay still, grounded, unbothered, her energy hits a wall. And when that happens, she starts to feel what you once felt: confusion, doubt, the desire to fix things. That's when respect is reborn. Now, don't mistake calmness for coldness. You're not ignoring, you're understanding. You're saying, I see what's happening, but I choose not to sink into it. That's not weakness, that's mastery. A man who can stay calm while the world tests him owns his life. Because emotional control is not about bottling up anger, it's about not letting it own you. It's about responding, not reacting. It's about choosing peace over ego. And here's the real beauty: the more you master your composure, the more mysterious you become, because now she can't predict you. She can't manipulate your response. She can't feed on your reactions. You become unreadable, and that's magnetic. Let's be real. Most men talk too much when they're hurt. They argue, they explain, they overexpress. But the Stoic man, he lets silence do the talking. And it hits deeper than any text, any speech, any quote you could ever post. Because calm energy speaks directly to the nervous system. It says, I'm fine with or without you. And that sentence is the most powerful one you'll never say. When you stay calm, you remind her she's not in control of your emotions. You are. When you stay calm, you remind her respect is earned, not demanded. And here's the best part. Once you master composure, people start treating you differently. Not just women, everyone. Because calmness feels like authority. It feels like wisdom. It feels like power. So the next time someone tries to trigger you, don't react. Take a breath, watch, smile, let their storm pass while you stay still like a mountain. Because mountains don't move when the wind blows, and that's what makes them sacred. Your second silent move is composure. It's not the absence of emotion, it's the presence of power. It's the art of holding your peace like a weapon no one can steal. The third silent move, the art of absence. You ever notice something strange? When you're around too much, people stop seeing you. But the moment you disappear, suddenly, everyone remembers your name. It's almost unfair, isn't it? You give your time, your energy, your loyalty, and it's taken for granted. You're there when they need you, and invisible when they don't. You show up, you care, you stay, yet somehow they drift away. Why does it always seem like the one who gives the most gets valued the least? Why do women chase the man who doesn't make himself so available? Why do they seem more drawn to absence than presence? It's because your constant presence removes mystery, and mystery is the oxygen of attraction. When you're always there emotionally, physically, mentally, there's no space for curiosity to grow. She knows your every move. She predicts your reactions. She feels your energy on demand. And once predictability sets in, fascination dies. See, the art of absence isn't about ghosting or playing hard to get. It's about living fully, even when you're not being watched. It's when your silence has depth. It's when your distance has purpose. It's when your absence doesn't look like withdrawal. It looks like evolution. Let's be honest, most men can't stand being unseen. They panic when they're not noticed. They rush back to prove their worth. But what they don't realize is this. Every time you chase visibility, you destroy your mystique. Your absence is supposed to whisper something powerful. I'm doing something meaningful with my time. When a man disappears not out of anger but out of purpose, it hits differently. She doesn't just miss your presence, she starts to feel the value that came with it. The peace, the energy, the attention, the emotional safety, all gone, and now your absence starts teaching lessons your words never could. You see, absence is not emptiness, it's gravity. It pulls attention, even when you say nothing. It's the invisible signal that tells the world, I'm busy creating something bigger than validation, and that's what separates boys who seek attention from men who create it. Here's the thing, the world tells men to always be there, to prove love by showing up constantly, to text more, give more, talk more, share more. But constant presence is not proof of love, it's proof of dependency. And dependency kills respect faster than dishonesty ever will. When you learn to enjoy your own space, you build internal strength. You stop fearing silence. You stop begging for reactions. You stop checking your phone, hoping she misses you, because now you understand real presence begins in absence. She can't crave what never leaves her, but she can deeply long for what used to anchor her energy. When you pull back into your purpose, not as a tactic, but as a truth, she feels it. She starts to wonder, what is he doing? Why isn't he reaching out? Did I lose something valuable? And that curiosity becomes desire, not because you manipulated her, but because your value finally has space to be felt. You become like a melody that plays once and lingers in her mind. You become a memory that doesn't fade, because your absence holds energy. That's the quiet power every Stoic man understands. He doesn't chase validation, he moves toward meaning. He replaces noise with purpose, and purpose naturally creates distance. But here's the key, your absence must always lead somewhere. It must build something, otherwise it's just escape. When your absence is used to sharpen your focus, build your craft, improve your body, deepen your mind, you don't lose anything by stepping away. You gain everything that makes you rare, and that's when absence turns into attraction. Because now your distance has depth, your silence has story, and your life has rhythm, one that doesn't depend on her reaction. So don't fear being unseen for a while. Don't panic when attention fades. Remember, value shines brighter when it's not always visible. Your third silent move is the art of absence. It's not retreat, it's refinement. It's the invisible proof that your world doesn't stop when someone walks away. It expands, and when she realizes that, regret begins to whisper louder than her pride. The fourth silent move, rebuilding your energy and aura. Have you ever noticed how some men walk into a room and the air changes without saying a word? It's like something in them radiates calm power, not arrogance, not fake confidence, just that quiet dominance that makes people turn their heads without knowing why. But here's the truth no one talks about. Most men lose that energy chasing people who drain them. They give too much, they explain too much, they try too hard. And in the process, they slowly trade their aura for attention. Why do we do that? Why do we think proving our worth will make us respected? Why do we try to be seen instead of being felt? Why do we pour from an empty cup, expecting someone to value what we no longer protect? You see, a man's energy is his currency. Every word, every gesture, every reaction spends it, and most men go broke emotionally long before they realize it. They give validation, time, effort, and empathy to people who haven't earned access to that level of energy. Then they wonder why their presence stops feeling magnetic. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Your aura fades when your energy is scattered. When you're everywhere, you're nowhere. When you're available to everyone, you become special to no one. The Stoic man understands something different. He doesn't beg to be respected. He builds respect by where he places his energy. He doesn't try to be noticed. He becomes unforgettable because his silence carries intention. Let's get real. When was the last time you sat alone without reaching for your phone and just felt your energy? Not the social version of you, not the charming version of you, but the quiet version that's raw, honest, and aware of what truly matters. That's where your power lives. That's where your presence recharges. That's where your aura is rebuilt, not in noise, not in validation, but in stillness. Here's what most people don't realize. Your aura isn't something you fake. It's something you earn through alignment. When your actions match your purpose, when your emotions serve your growth instead of your ego, when your time is spent building rather than begging, that's when energy turns magnetic. Women don't fall for loud men. They fall for men whose calmness feels like control. They sense the energy that doesn't ask to be respected. It demands it without a single word. Because when you're aligned, your energy does the talking. You stop oversharing. You stop over-explaining. You stop trying to make people see your worth because now it radiates from you. It's in your tone, it's in your walk, it's in your pause. You become unpredictable, not because you're playing games, but because you're living intentionally. And that unpredictability, it shakes people. They don't know what you're thinking. They don't know if you still care. They don't know what your next move is, and that's where your control begins. But remember this, your aura is fragile. Every time you argue unnecessarily, you lose it. Every time you explain yourself to someone committed to misunderstanding you, you lose it. Every time you trade peace for ego battles, you lose it. Because your energy is like a currency that either builds your empire or funds your chaos. So you need to protect it like your life depends on it, because it does. Your peace decides how much of yourself you have left to give. And only when you preserve it do people start feeling your absence as power, not silence. Let's go deeper. Your aura doesn't come from your looks, your money, or your words. It comes from your internal stillness, from your ability to stay grounded when everything tries to pull you off balance, from your ability to listen, observe, and move slowly when everyone else reacts fast. That's what Stoicism teaches. Control the inside, and the outside bends to you. When a woman feels your composure under pressure, it's not just attractive, it's magnetic, because it signals something she doesn't have but deeply craves: stability. And in a world full of emotional noise, stability is the loudest frequency. You don't chase attention, you let attention chase peace, because that's where you live. Your fourth silent move is about rebuilding your energy and aura until your presence says what your words no longer need to. When you walk into a room, your silence must have gravity. When you speak, your calm must command. When you leave, your absence must echo. And all of that begins when you stop wasting energy trying to prove your worth and start using it to become your worth. The fifth silent move, emotional mastery, the power of still fire. You ever met a man who doesn't raise his voice, doesn't chase, doesn't react, yet somehow everyone feels his power? There's something terrifying about that kind of calm. It's not weakness, it's restraint, it's quiet fire. And that's the kind of fire most men lose the moment emotions take the wheel. Let me ask you something. Why do we explode when someone disrespects us? Why do we overreact when someone we care about pulls away? Why do we feel this deep urge to prove we're not to be messed with when true power doesn't need to prove anything at all? Why do we think yelling louder makes our point stronger when all it does is show we've lost control of ourselves? You see, the problem isn't emotion. The problem is being ruled by emotion. Because a man who can't control his emotions becomes easy to predict. And the moment someone can predict you, they can manipulate you. That's how you lose power in silence, not because you spoke, but because you reacted. Think about it. How many times have you texted out of anger, only to regret it 5 minutes later? How many times have you chased clarity, only to end up looking desperate for validation? How many times have you turned your peace into chaos just to make a point? That's not strength, that's leakage. Every emotional reaction drains your masculine presence. Every outburst, every argument, every need to explain steals a piece of your energy. And once that energy scatters, your aura weakens. But the Stoic man, he moves differently. He doesn't suppress emotions, he masters them. He feels everything, but he decides what deserves expression. He's aware of the fire, but he doesn't let it burn the wrong things. That's emotional mastery, not killing your emotions but leading them. And here's the truth, the man who controls his emotions controls every interaction, because emotions are invisible frequencies. They shape how people respond to you without you saying a word. If you carry calm energy, the world softens around you. If you carry anger, resistance finds you. If you carry neediness, people sense it even through silence. You must learn this one principle: control your internal weather. You can't stop the storm, but you can become the sky that holds it. Now imagine this. A woman disrespects you, tries to test your limits, expects you to react. But you don't. You just stay grounded. You don't match her chaos. You mirror it back with silence. You don't fight for her attention. You give her the gift of your absence. And suddenly, she feels something new: fear. Not fear of you, but fear of losing access to your peace. Because women may play with drama, but they crave stability. And when your energy doesn't shake, it triggers something deep. They start to question, how does he stay so calm? Why doesn't he need to explain himself? What gives him that kind of control? That's when respect begins. Not when you argue for it, not when you demand it, but when your composure forces others to rise to your level. This is why emotional mastery is the final silent move. It's the invisible foundation that supports every other one. You can't be detached without emotional control. You can't project aura if your emotions are unstable. You can't live with purpose if every little thing throws you off course. Your stillness must become a message. Your peace must become your weapon. Your calm must become your boundary. Let's take it deeper. In every situation, there are two energies: reaction and response. Reaction is instant, it's emotional, it's raw. Response is delayed, it's calculated, it's powerful. The man who pauses before responding controls the frame. He slows the tempo of every interaction and sets his rhythm as the standard. That pause, that silence, that breath, that's where power hides. You don't win by shouting. You win by making your silence louder than their noise. You don't win by explaining. You win by letting people feel the cost of losing your attention. You don't win by showing emotion on demand. You win by showing emotion with discipline. Because emotions are not meant to rule you, they're meant to serve you. Anger becomes fuel for self-improvement. Sadness becomes a signal for healing. Disappointment becomes data. That's how Stoicism turns pain into precision. When a man learns emotional mastery, he doesn't just attract women, he commands environments. He becomes magnetic because he's unpredictable in the most powerful way. No one knows what could break him, because nothing does. So the next time someone tries to provoke you, don't react. Observe. Let your silence stretch. Let your calmness speak for you. That's the move they never recover from. Emotional mastery isn't about being cold, it's about being unshakable. It's about walking through storms with the same expression you had on a sunny day. It's about having your heart on fire, but your face made of stone. That's what makes a man untouchable. That's what makes women rethink the way they treated you. And that's what makes your energy unforgettable. Because the man who controls himself controls everything. The sixth silent move: shifting power through energy control. You ever notice how some men don't need to say a word, yet the whole room shifts when they walk in? Not because they're loud, not because they're trying, but because their energy speaks louder than words ever could. That right there is the kind of control most men never develop, because they spend their whole lives reacting to energy instead of commanding it. Here's the problem. Most men walk through life leaking energy everywhere. They give it to people who don't respect them. They waste it on arguments that don't matter. They spend it chasing validation instead of building direction. And then they wonder why they feel drained, unseen, and unappreciated. Why their presence doesn't pull attention the way it used to. Why no one seems to take them seriously anymore. It's not bad luck, it's bad energy management. You see, energy is currency. You spend it every second you're awake. And like money, when you don't manage it, you end up broke. Not broke in the bank, but broke in the soul. Empty, tired, lost. Running on fumes, chasing moments that give you a hit of excitement, but no meaning. That's where most men live. Constantly trying to refill themselves through people, pleasure, and distraction. But true power begins when you stop chasing energy and start protecting it. Because once you do, everything changes. Your presence becomes sharper, your silence becomes heavier, your absence becomes noticeable, and suddenly the same people who once took you for granted start to feel your value again. Let's be real. You can't build attraction, confidence, or peace when your mind and body are untrained. A chaotic mind leaks energy through worry, overthinking, and emotional outbursts. A weak body leaks energy through laziness, fatigue, and lack of discipline. And a distracted soul leaks energy through endless noise, social media, validation, comparison. So, here's the truth. Energy mastery begins with containment. You must learn how to stop giving your energy to things that don't return it. Ask yourself, how often do you argue just to prove you're right? How often do you scroll for hours, giving your focus to strangers who don't know you exist? How often do you let your mind wander to what she is doing instead of building what you could be doing? Every second you do that, you lose power, not just mentally but physically. You feel tired not because life is hard, but because you keep letting others drain your battery. Now, here's where Stoicism comes in. Stoicism isn't about being emotionless, it's about being efficient. You stop reacting to what doesn't deserve reaction. You stop giving time to what doesn't give meaning. You stop explaining to people who've already decided not to understand. That's energy control. That's how your aura grows. Because when a man conserves his energy, it starts to condense. And condensed energy creates presence. It's why monks, warriors, and stoics move slow but carry massive intensity. Every movement means something. Every glance carries weight. Every silence has power behind it. People start to feel you, not just see you, and that's when things start to shift. You stop chasing attention because attention starts chasing you. But let's talk about the science behind it for a second. Your energy is not mystical, it's physiological. Your focus, breath, posture, and discipline directly affect your energetic field. When your body is strong, your energy flows clean. When your mind is still, your energy becomes magnetic. When your purpose is clear, your energy moves forward like a current, direct, unstoppable, and women can feel this. They might not explain it, but they sense it. They feel when your energy is heavy with control or scattered with chaos. They know when you've mastered your inner world because it shows in how little external noise can move you. This is what separates the man who needs attention from the man who commands it. The difference is not looks, not status, not luck. It's energy mastery. A man with contained energy creates gravity. He doesn't chase, it comes to him. He doesn't try to be noticed. He's impossible to ignore. Because his focus, his peace, his aura, all say one thing: I'm not available for nonsense. Let's break that down even deeper. Energy control is about boundaries. It's about saying no without guilt. It's about disappearing for days, not to play games, but to refill your power quietly. It's about cutting off small talk, small habits, and small people that keep you small. When you master that, you start to feel something strange: stillness. Your thoughts slow down, your emotions steady, your movements feel intentional. You start to speak less, but every word you do say hits harder. That's the aura of mastery. That's what makes disrespect feel heavy on their conscience. Because your absence is no longer emptiness, it's reflection. People begin to reflect on how they treated you when they no longer have access to you. They realize your energy was their peace, your calm was their grounding, your silence was their safety. That's the silent revenge, not through anger, but through absence, not through shouting, but through self-control. Not through proving, but through presence. When you reach that level, your energy no longer chases, it attracts, and the more you protect it, the stronger your presence becomes. until one day you'll walk into a room, say nothing, and still change everything. That's energy mastery. That's the real win. The seventh silent move, turning stillness into influence. Ever notice how the people who talk the least somehow control the room the most? It's strange, right? They sit there, calm, unbothered, saying almost nothing, yet everyone adjusts to them. Their energy dictates the rhythm. Their silence bends the atmosphere. You can feel it. Everyone can. That's not coincidence. That's mastery. But let me ask you something. Why do most men talk too much when they feel disrespected? Why do they explain, argue, overreact, and try to make people see their worth? Why do they turn every insult into a debate, every rejection into a desperate chase for closure? Why can't they just be still? Why can't they just sit back and let their silence speak? Because silence feels powerless when you don't trust your own value. Stillness feels like losing when your ego needs movement to feel alive. You want to respond, you want to show them, you want to prove. But in doing that, you lose control, and that's exactly what Stoicism teaches you to avoid, losing power through reaction. See, every time you react to someone else, you give them control over your emotions, you hand them the steering wheel to your peace. And here's the brutal truth. You can't influence a room when you're emotionally predictable. You can't lead anyone when your inner state depends on how others treat you. But when you master stillness, everything changes, because stillness isn't weakness, it's leverage. It's the invisible pressure that makes people question themselves. When someone disrespects you and you stay calm, they feel their own immaturity echo back at them. When someone walks away and you don't chase, they feel your absence like silence after thunder. When someone tests your boundaries and you hold your line with peace instead of anger, they start to respect you, even if they don't understand why. Stillness flips the script. It turns your silence into a mirror that reflects their behavior right back to them. That's the psychology of power. Let's go deeper. Every human being craves validation. When you don't give it, people either rise to earn it or expose their insecurity trying. So when a man practices emotional stillness, he naturally creates imbalance in those who rely on emotional chaos. They start to crave your energy. They start to chase your calm, because your peace becomes something rare. That's the scarcity principle in motion, not just through time, but through emotional energy. The less reactive you are, the rarer your energy becomes. The rarer your energy becomes, the more value it carries, and the more value it carries, the more respect it commands. But here's what most men miss. Stillness is not silence alone. It's composure with direction. It's quiet confidence that says, I could respond, but I choose not to. That's what shakes people, because restraint is power. Look at the greats: Marcus Aurelius, Miyamoto Musashi, Bruce Lee. Different eras, different paths, same principle. They all understood that calmness creates control. They didn't move because others moved. They moved when it mattered. They weren't chasing validation. They were building internal stability. That's what you have to develop, the ability to sit in tension without folding, to feel the sting of disrespect and not need revenge, to be left out, overlooked or misunderstood, and still not lose focus. Ask yourself this. Why does silence scare most people? Why do they rush to fill it with explanations, apologies, or noise? Because silence exposes truth, and truth is uncomfortable. When you become okay with silence, you start to make people uncomfortable, not because you try to, but because your peace forces them to confront themselves. Your energy begins to influence them without words. You walk into a room, and suddenly, people speak softer. They check their tone, they lower their voice, not because you demanded respect, but because your energy silently says, I don't operate in chaos. That's the Stoic advantage. You don't win by reacting, you win by being unfazed. Your calmness becomes a weapon. Your stillness becomes presence. And that presence changes how people behave around you, because the truth is, power doesn't need to announce itself. The sun doesn't ask for attention, it just rises. The lion doesn't roar to prove it's strong, it moves slowly, knowing everyone already knows. So stop explaining, stop chasing closure, stop responding to things that drain your spirit. Every time you choose stillness, you reclaim power. Every time you choose composure, you raise your value. Every time you choose silence, you create impact. Women, friends, even enemies, eventually they all feel it. They start to regret underestimating you, not because you punished them, but because your absence made them realize what they lost, your peace. Your calm energy was a rare experience in a world full of noise, and once they lose it, they crave it again. That's how stillness becomes influence. That's how influence becomes respect. And that's how respect becomes power. The quietest man in the room is often the one everyone's watching. The eighth law of unshakable presence: how to make the world move around you. Have you ever wondered why some men don't chase opportunities, yet opportunities chase them? Why certain people seem to walk through life as if the world naturally rearranges itself to fit their rhythm? Why their name carries weight even when they're not in the room? And why, no matter what happens, they always seem to land on their feet, while others are constantly scrambling, proving, begging to be seen? It's not luck, it's not money, it's not charisma, it's something deeper. It's called presence. But here's the hard truth most men never face. You can't fake presence. You can fake confidence. You can fake charm. You can fake words. But presence, that's spiritual gravity. It's what happens when your energy becomes so still, so grounded, so internally complete that the external world starts bending toward you. Now let me ask you, why do most men walk into a room hoping to be liked instead of already knowing they belong? Why do they chase validation through attention instead of building magnetism through self-control? Why do they keep giving energy to people, women, and environments that don't give anything back? And most importantly, why do they settle for being seen when they could be felt? Because somewhere along the way they were taught that doing more creates attraction, when in truth it's being more that creates gravity, and presence is the art of being more. Let's break this down. Every human interaction is an energetic exchange. You project something and people feel it, consciously or not. If your energy screams, "Please notice me," people withdraw. If your energy says, "I don't need to be noticed," people lean in. Because detachment isn't cold, it's magnetic. Presence is born from detachment, not the kind that makes you numb, but the kind that makes you certain. You're not trying to prove anything, you're not trying to convince anyone, you simply are. When you're present, you radiate steadiness, and steadiness is rare. Most people are emotionally scattered, mentally distracted, spiritually restless, so when someone calm, focused and grounded walks in, they feel it. Your stillness starts to reorganize their noise. They can't explain it, but they can sense it. You become an anchor in a sea of chaos. Now here's where most men go wrong. They confuse presence with posture. They think presence means puffing their chest, standing tall, acting dominant, but that's surface, that's theater. True presence comes from alignment between your inner world and your outer actions. It's when your words, tone, energy, and silence are all saying the same thing. That's when people trust you instantly, because your energy feels real. And here's the twist. Presence isn't built through addition, but through subtraction. You don't gain presence by adding more personality or performance. You gain it by removing neediness, anxiety, and internal noise. Presence grows when you stop over-explaining, when you stop defending yourself, when you stop chasing quick validation and start mastering long silence. Think about it. When you meet someone who's truly powerful, they don't talk much, do they? They don't explain their value. They don't convince. They just exist fully. That's presence. And here's the psychological reason why this works. Humans mirror emotional states. When you're calm, grounded, and in control, you subconsciously invite others to sync to that frequency. You don't force respect, you evoke it. People feel more stable around you, more aware, more careful with their words. That's how presence influences reality. You're not demanding attention, you're shaping it. You're not trying to be remembered, you're becoming unforgettable. Now let's make it practical. Presence begins with awareness. How often are you aware of your body language, breathing, or inner tone when speaking? Most men talk from tension. Their words are fast, their eyes dart, their hands fidget. That energy leaks value. Presence is slow, it's deliberate, it's calm. You speak from stillness, not urgency. You listen more than you talk. You hold eye contact without flinching. You move only when necessary. Every gesture carries meaning because nothing is wasted. And the more you embody this, the more people respond to you differently. They begin to pause when you speak. They feel safer in your energy. They subconsciously grant you authority, not because you asked for it, but because your vibration demands it. This is what Stoic men understand. You don't control others through pressure, you influence them through presence. It's the paradox of power. When you stop chasing control, you start having it. When you stop trying to impress, you become impressive. When you stop seeking attention, attention starts to seek you. Presence is your proof that you no longer need to move fast to get ahead. You become like gravity, still, silent but unavoidable. People orbit around your calmness because it represents safety, certainty, and depth in a world addicted to chaos. And that's the point. You don't need to dominate a room by being the loudest man. You dominate by being the most composed. You don't need to prove your worth. You radiate it. You don't need to chase attraction. You embody it. That's how presence turns into power. That's how power turns into respect. And that's how respect silently builds your legacy. The truth is, your words will fade, but your energy won't. People might forget what you said, but they'll never forget how your presence made them feel, safe, curious, or quietly inspired. So from this moment forward, stop trying to show your worth. Start becoming so still, so certain, so grounded that the world can't help but adjust itself around you. The silent power of detachment in action, influence without effort. Have you ever noticed how the more you want something, the further it seems to move away from you? The more you chase that woman's attention, the more she loses interest. The harder you try to fix a situation, the faster it falls apart. It's strange, right? It almost feels unfair, like the universe rewards indifference and punishes effort. But what if it's not unfair? What if this is one of the oldest psychological laws of attraction at play, one most men never master? See, there's a kind of quiet power that doesn't come from doing more. It comes from being less reactive, from being unmoved while others panic, from knowing when to let silence do the work. That's detachment in motion. And it's not coldness, it's not arrogance. It's a form of mastery that says, I trust the process more than I trust my impulses. Now think about it. Why do we often feel the urge to do something the moment someone pulls away? Why do we rush to fix, explain, apologize, or prove our worth? Because deep down, we fear loss. We fear being forgotten. We fear being unseen. But here's the paradox. The more you try to hold on to something, the more it slips through your hands. Because the energy of attachment pushes things away, while the energy of detachment pulls them in. You see, every time you act out of fear of losing something, you hand over your power. You give that person emotional control, and once they can sense that you need them more than they need you, the balance is gone. That's why detachment is not about ignoring people, it's about not depending on them for your peace. It's about staying centered, whether they stay, go, love, or leave. You stay the same man, solid, grounded, unshaken. That's what women find magnetic. That's what people respect. Because when your emotions are calm, your energy feels safe, and everyone deep down is searching for safety. Let's dive deeper. Most men live emotionally on the edge. Their mood depends on text replies, other people's validation, or unpredictable outcomes. But a detached man, he lives from center, not from reaction. He's not controlled by uncertainty, he's fueled by it. He doesn't panic when plans change, he adapts. He doesn't chase closure, he creates distance and peace within himself. Now imagine this. Two men face rejection. The first man spirals, he overthinks, sends multiple messages, replays the moment 100 times in his head. The second man stays calm. He accepts it, he moves on, invests in his goals, improves his focus, his body, his craft. Who grows? Who becomes more desirable? Who holds more power? Exactly, the detached man. Because the moment he chose not to fight reality, he aligned with it, he gained freedom. And freedom always looks attractive to those who feel trapped by their emotions. Detachment also redefines your aura. When you no longer need attention, people give it to you. When you no longer seek validation, people offer it to you, because your silence starts to echo louder than your words ever did. That's when your absence becomes felt, not as rejection, but as respect earned. But here's the beauty. Detachment doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop clinging. You can still love deeply, but without losing yourself in the process. You can still show emotion, but without letting it dictate your next move. You can still want something, but you're okay if it doesn't happen. That level of calm is what gives your presence weight. It's what makes people second-guess walking away from you. Because when they realize you're fine without them, they begin to crave the peace they once felt around you. It's not manipulation, it's nature. When something rare no longer seeks, it becomes sought after. When something valuable doesn't chase, it becomes pursued. And this is where true influence begins. You don't change people by forcing them. You change them by being unchangeable. You don't win by chasing outcomes. You win by creating conditions where outcomes chase you. So what's the lesson here? Detachment is not a reaction. It's a way of being. It's a mindset that says, I am complete with or without the world's response. And that mindset frees you, because once you realize that peace is internal, not external, no person, no situation, no heartbreak can take it away. Here's the secret. When you stop being emotionally available to everything that moves, you start becoming emotionally powerful to everything that matters. Your time gains value, your attention becomes currency, and your silence becomes the loudest statement you'll ever make. That's how you move through life like a storm that never announces itself. But when it arrives, everyone feels the shift, because a detached man doesn't chase impact. He becomes the impact. He doesn't seek respect, he radiates it. And the more he stays calm in chaos, the more chaos starts respecting his calm. That's the paradox of Stoic power. You don't conquer others, you conquer yourself. And when you do, the world quietly follows your lead. Becoming the man they remember, the end of need, the beginning of power. Let me ask you something real. When was the last time you walked away from something and truly felt peace about it? Not anger, not resentment, not that fake I'm done attitude you use to convince yourself you're over it, but real peace, that quiet kind that feels like power resting inside you. See, that's the finish line most men never reach. They confuse detachment with revenge. They confuse silence with punishment. They confuse walking away with trying to make someone notice their absence. But here's the truth. Real detachment doesn't need a witness. It's not about proving you've moved on. It's about knowing you already have. That's when you win the invisible war, because the man who doesn't need to be seen to feel worthy is unstoppable. Think about this. Your whole life, you've been told to prove your value, to work harder, to give more, to stay available, to always be the good guy. And what did that get you? Tired, confused, drained, maybe even disrespected. Because when your worth depends on someone else's validation, you hand over the keys to your peace. You become a prisoner of opinions. You lose the quiet power that was yours from the start. But when you train your mind and your body to stand on its own foundation, everything changes. That's when people start feeling you differently. They can sense your calm, they can sense your control, and they realize they can't push you off balance because your power no longer comes from them. That's the transformation of a man who's mastered energy. He no longer reacts, he responds. He no longer chases, he chooses. He no longer attaches, he aligns. And this shift, it shows up in silence. You'll notice people who once ignored you will start to check for you. Women who thought they could replace you will begin to feel your absence like a cold wind. But by then it won't even matter to you, because you'll be too focused on the life you're building, the mission that makes you feel alive. That's when you realize peace was never found in controlling others. Peace was in controlling yourself. Now listen carefully. This isn't about ego. This is about energy ownership. When your energy is spread everywhere, chasing, proving, fixing, it gets weak. When it's centered inside you, grounded, calm, directed, it becomes magnetic. That's why real power never needs to announce itself. It simply is. It doesn't rush. It doesn't beg. It doesn't demand attention. It commands it by existing. A Stoic man doesn't need to tell anyone he's high value. He moves like it. He speaks like it. He walks like it. And even in silence, his presence makes noise. That's the kind of man women regret losing, not the man who texted paragraphs begging for closure, not the man who tried to prove he cared more, but the man who quietly elevated his life while they were too distracted to notice. Because the most haunting thing for someone who disrespected you is realizing that while they were playing small games, you were growing into something unshakable. That's what makes them regret. Not your words, not your silence, but your evolution. When you become a man whose peace can't be disturbed, you become unforgettable. Your absence feels heavy. Your energy lingers because you've detached from needing approval and connected to something far stronger, self-respect. Now, here's where most men fail. They hear all this and think detachment means cutting everyone off. But detachment isn't running away. It's being fully there without being consumed. It's loving deeply without losing yourself. It's showing up without seeking control. That's what Stoicism teaches you, not to escape emotion but to master it, not to avoid love but to bring power into love. So when someone tests your patience, your silence teaches more than words ever could. When someone disrespects you, your calm presence shows them what they lost. When someone leaves, you let them, because you know your peace doesn't go with them. And that's the final move most men never learn, the ability to live in full control of your emotions, yet still have your heart open, to be powerful but gentle, to be confident but humble, to be calm but unshakable. That's the ultimate form of masculine energy. That's energy mastery. And it's not built overnight, it's trained through stillness, through discipline, through detachment, through presence. So by now, you've learned the truth. It was never about making her regret. It was never about winning back anything. It was about winning yourself back. Because once you do that, you won't need revenge. You won't need validation. You won't even need to prove your worth. Your peace will speak louder than words. Your energy will carry your story. And your presence, calm, focused, untouchable, will make the world turn its head without you ever asking it to. That's not theory. That's power. That's freedom. That's Stoicism. You've already become the man they'll remember, because while they were distracted by noise, you became silence. And silence, my friend, always echoes the loudest.